Welcome to Stab the Dragon Productions for episode number 226, coming to you from Fort Worth, Texas, on Friday, September 26, 2025, where it is currently 88 degrees. I think we're finally enjoying real fall, maybe. We are currently celebrating National Bourbon Heritage Month, Tolkien Week, and Oktoberfest, all this week. But in this month, I am focusing on bourbon, and I've been studying some of the products of the James B. Beam Distilling Company. So today we will examine another Basil Hayden Kentucky Straight Bourbon called Subtle Smoke. Just the facts. This 80 proof straight bourbon is made using the Jim Beam High Rye mash bill, and they obviously invest a lot of money in their fancy bottle and label, bringing the cost to $54.99. And I can only find this on my part of Fort Worth at Total Wine. Tasting notes. Well, yeah, there's a touch of soft char, a little bit of butterscotch maybe, maple syrup somewhat, vanilla, toasted hickory wood, caramel, some of the normal bourbon flavors, but it's that soft char that seeps through just a little bit, very subtle, hence the name, Subtle Smoke. I gave this whiskey a score of 90 and a letter grade for drinkability of A+. Very rare for Kentucky bourbon to get an A+ from me. Usually, that's going to be a Texas bourbon. My recommendation, I enjoy a wide range of whiskeys from 80 proof blended scotches to cask strength bourbons, smoky Texas whiskeys to smoky scotch. And these 80 proof bourbons from Basil Hayden, I'm enjoying. My philosophy of drinking was to always learn to enjoy the cheap stuff, the lower proof stuff, and not get addicted to the expensive stuff, but definitely enjoy the expensive stuff when I can get it. You can raise legitimate concerns about value here, though, because of the price versus the proof. Or you can simply kick back and enjoy a beautifully well-crafted bourbon that's 80 proof. The price is high for 80, but there are plenty of 80 proof scotches that are way more expensive and not quite as tasty. So I'm glad I bought this, and I would buy it again. The taste is right up in the middle of my profile, and that slight smoky flavor is a plus. So yeah, Subtle Smoke Edition is a favorite. Now for the details. History. Jim Beam introduced Basil Hayden small batch whiskey back in 1992, so over 30 years ago. It was named for a famous Kentucky distiller whose family eventually produced the Old Grandad Distillery, and then the brand which Jim Beam eventually acquired, bought, or assumed through their parent company. The other Beam small batch bourbons include Knob Creek, which starts at 100 proof, and Booker's, which is barrel proof, or Baker's, which is a single barrel at about 107 proof. This Subtle Smoke Edition was released in 2022, and it was planned to be just a limited release. It was very well received, though, so they have made more and more. So for history, 5 out of 5 points. Bottle, label, and marketing. Now, this bottle shape is fairly normal. There's nothing fancy going on with the actual bottle itself. I mean, it's got a slender neck, but it's tapered but not curved. The label, however, is where they spend the money. And this is one of the best I've ever seen. It's designed to look like old parchment. See the torn edges there? Now this other edge is straight, but kind of a faded off white color, cream colored or something like that. But the metal band in the BH belt buckle, that's very well done. And I think that represents the metal bands going around whiskey barrels is probably what that is all about. This Subtle Smoke Edition has got this extra little label tacked on here on the side that gives you some tasting notes and stuff. It says notes: hickory, caramel, velvety mouthfeel, finish, soft smokiness. Finished in hickory smoked new charred oak barrels. This special release has delicate campfire notes that elevate the maple sweetness and soft char, perfected and second to none. subtle smoke. There you go. So I think all in all, this bottle and label is extremely classy. It's artful. It's well thought out. Well done. Now, I have not seen any advertisements for this whiskey. I did a mild search on YouTube, but word of mouth on the whiskey community is strong, so that's where I've heard of the brand. And then as I was researching my local stores like Total Wine and Specs, that's where I saw this edition. And that's really the only way I found this edition. It's like, subtle smoke? Really? I never heard of that one. And I rushed out and got it. So word of mouth is strong, and if you check your liquor store and see it there, that's a good idea. But the brand I've heard of for many years. But this year is when I sampled this brand and moved into it. So it's really new to me. I've heard Basil Hayden always described as a whiskey for beginners, and in most reviews I've watched or read. But I would take this special edition, and I think this has got way more to offer than just a simple beginner whiskey. And there's nothing wrong with beginner whiskeys. I've been in the whiskey community for over 10 years, and so I'm not a beginner, but I really like this. 5 out of 5 points for bottle, label, and marketing. Appearance. Well, in the bottle, you can see that it's really fairly dark, and in the glass, that is a 3 headed to 4. I mean, that's like a 3.5. I mean, that's pretty dark for a Kentucky bourbon. So that's impressive, actually, but I'm going to give it 3 points. Composition. Well, the mash bill is reportedly the same as it is for Old Granddad and Knob Creek. 63 corn, 27 rye, 10% barley. It is labeled as a straight bourbon, and there's no additional age statement, so it's likely at least 4 years old, probably a little bit longer. Some reviewers said that it used to be 8 years old, so maybe so. Probably at least 6 or 7. The difference is that they toast a new barrel and then literally blow hickory chip smoke into the barrel. And then they pour the bourbon in this new barrel for another 6 months or so. So, that's a pretty complex operation, and 14 out of 15 points for composition. Thank you very much. Let's go to the nose. This has a delightful nose. I get a touch of that smoke. Sweet vanilla. Yeah, I'm actually getting some vanilla. That's rare for me. For whatever reason, my inadequate nose usually fails to pick up vanilla. Unless you're talking about a cake that's got vanilla frosting on it. But in bourbons, rare. So sweetness, vanilla, touch of smoke. I mean, really, that's a pretty good nose. If I can smell a bourbon, that's an 8. My normal base score is a 7. So this is an 8. Yeah. Taste. Wow. Now it's got the Basil Hayden taste, that high rye mash bill that I love. That's cooking in. But there's something extra there. There's that small dose of campfire. You're getting some of the peanuts, which is common with Old Granddad, Basil Hayden, Jim Beam. The smoke is not like peat smoke. It's a little bit softer than that. It's very subtle. A campfire in the distance maybe. So picture yourself sitting around a campfire in the mountains, and you're sipping on Basil Hayden, and you get a whiff of that smoke, the campfire smoke, drifting lazily around you once in a while. Yeah, it's there. I mean, it's not real strong. It is not. I wish it was stronger. Yes, I do wish it was stronger. I love peated scotches. I love some smoky Texas whiskeys. So this gives you just the briefest little taste of it, and it's like, oh, more please. But this classic rye mash bill is my favorite Kentucky bourbon flavor going on. So it's there fully. But it definitely leaves me wanting a bit more of the flavor and of the smoke. Still, this is 24 out of 25. For me to give a Kentucky bourbon that score, yeah, this will be a favorite. Mouthfeel, burn, and finish. Okay, the mouthfeel and burn is about the same as the regular Basil Hayden. So it's not bad, but at 80 proof, it is going to leave you lacking a little bit. Now, many of the reviews that I've read and watched are very critical of this bourbon because, it's just a beginner bourbon. Great. Okay, I get it. I'm no beginner, but I enjoy this. So, if your palate is just geared for cask strength, I can't fix that. That's an individual thing. I like some cask strength bourbons, but I like this 80 proof as well. So yeah, it's just a bit thin. The finish, uh, it's a little bit weak, but at the same time, it's not bad. I mean, this is so enjoyable to drink. I'm going to give it a 13 out of 15. But if this was 83 proof or 86 proof, oh, why don't they do that? I don't know. All right, neat or mixer. This is excellent and neat. But frankly, I'm not sure I would want to do this in a cocktail. Uh, Now, if I had one of those smoke kits that you can get to make your smoky cocktail with, and you got the little blowtorch thing, and you got the wood chips and the little net thing, I need to get one of those because I think that would be a perfect match for this. If you have one and you've not tried doing that with the Basil Hayden subtle smoke, I think you ought to try that. Uh, that would be great. But I think if I put this in an old fashioned, it would lose its flavor, I think. I just don't think this is necessarily strong enough to keep the flavors that I like. I don't know. Maybe I'm selling it short, but I just don't really want to do a cocktail with this. This is a neat session sipper, and it's over 50 bucks. And once I hit $40 on a whiskey, my using it in a cocktail really plummets. I'm hesitant to do that. That's just me. If you want to do a $100 bourbon in a cocktail, go for it. That's on you. So for neater mixer, only 4 out of 5 because at 80 proof and 50 bucks, I'm just not going to do a cocktail. So 4 out of 5 points. Price, value, and availability. I got this at Total Wine because that's the only place in my part of town that had it. Specs didn't have it. Goody Goody didn't have it. I don't regularly check the smaller stores, but Total Wine had it, $54.99. So the price, yeah, that's a bit high for an 80 proof, but I really like this one. So 55 bucks essentially for this. I think it's got good value for me. Value's in the eye of the beholder, or the palate of the beholder, as the case may be. The palate of the drinker. That's more like it. Availability, fairly low. And they're saying this is a special release, so it may not be around long. I think that would be a mistake, Jim Beam. This needs to be, standard. This needs to be part of the core lineup. So I'm going to give it a high value for this and deduct points for the availability. 9 out of 10 for price, value, and availability. Bonus points. I absolutely love the idea of this and the end result. My only wish is that this was aged a little bit longer in those smoky barrels, get a little bit more of the smoke, and at a higher proof. I mean, I don't know why Jim Beam does what they do. I know, I guess it keeps the price down, but still, this is 55 bucks. So 5 out of 5 for bonus, despite the flaws, I think, because I really like this one. This is going to be a favorite. All right, that gives me a total score of 90 points and a letter grade for drinkability of an A+. My analysis and recommendation. So when I hear the professional bourbon reviewers say, well, this is a disappointing beginner bourbon, I get it. But at the same time, again, I've been drinking for over a decade, so I'm no beginner. I enjoy a wide range of whiskeys from 80 proof to 120 proof. And I like smoky Texas whiskeys and smoky Scotch. This gives me just a hint of smoke that leaves me wanting more. And it's 80 proof, but I still love it. And my philosophy of drinking was to always try to enjoy the cheap stuff and not get addicted to the expensive stuff. Now, you can raise legitimate concerns about the value here because of the price versus the proof, or you can simply kick back and enjoy a beautifully well-crafted bourbon at 80 proof. Again, the price is a bit high, but you know, there's plenty of 80 proof scotches that cost this much or more. So I'm glad I bought it. I will definitely buy it again. The taste is right up in the middle of my profile, and that slight smoky flavor is a plus. So subtle smoke is a favorite. Conclusion. Next up, we're going to try to do Basil Hayden Toast. Basil Hayden Toast. And then possibly I might do another Old Granddad, but I've got some other things I've got to do next week, so I'm just not sure what's going to come. The toast may be the final edition of the Jim Beam lineup that I'll be able to do this year. And then see in October, which is next week, I've got several episodes of American Catechism because there's a ton of history involved with next week. So for now, this is Stab the Dragon, out here.